This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by OWC, Spectra 1964, Atom Audio, Isotope, Jay-Z Microphones, and Solid State Logic. You're hearing my voice right now on the Jay-Z V12 microphone through the Spectra 1964 STX100D mic pre and C610 complementer with Isotope, RX, Ozone, and Neutron, all recorded safely onto an OWC SSD and mixed on Atom Audio monitors. So please remember to check out our awesome sponsors using the link in the show notes below. It's a great way to help support this show. And now, get ready to rock.
I was so precious of what I was doing. I became so precious of my mixes that I wouldn't listen to what the artist had to say for comments. I just couldn't understand if it made me feel so emotional that anything should change of that mix, right? Because it had really, truly grabbed me.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. If you've ever wondered how I get a consistent sound quality mixing hundreds of episodes of Recording Studio Rockstars, it's because I've been cheating by using Isotope, RX, Ozone, and Neutron on every single episode. Right now, you're hearing on my voice RX breath control, D-click, D-clip, DS, deplosive, voice denoise, Ozone multiband compression, Neutron EQ, and limiting, all from Isotope. Check out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at isotope.com/rockstars or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. No matter where you like to rock in the galaxy, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron lets you record up to 2 terabytes over USB-C with speeds of up to more than a gigabyte per second, transfer your tracks in a flash, and take your samples and sessions with you to the studio or stage. The OWC Envoy Pro Electron is your waterproof, dustproof, and crush-proof SSD that you can rely on. Use our custom link in the show notes to help support this podcast at macsales.com/rockstars. Hey Rockstars, it's your host Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Michael Brauer, a Grammy-winning New York mix engineer. His many credits include Best Pop Vocal Album for John Mayer's Continuum, Best Alternative Album for Coldplay's Parachutes, and also Best Rock Album for Coldplay's Viva la Vida or Death and All His Friends. Other artists that he's worked with include the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Jeff Buckley, David Byrne, Paul McCartney, Ben Folds, KT Tunstall, and Martha Wainwright, to name just a few of the many that he has recorded or mixed. He also invented the technique known as Brauerizing, in which mixes are routed through multiple compressors and buses to create a blended sound. And he is co-founder of Mix with the Masters, which has been running for over a decade. Michael has been a guest on the show previously to talk about his background in music and mixing, so please check out that episode at RSR390. And at that time, he had relocated outside the heart of the city of New York to settle in to his home studio for mixing. Michael also completed his journey of migrating his mix template over from a hybrid setup to a full in-the-box method with the help of his engineer, Fernando Reyes. Michael created a fantastic course on puremix.net called Brauerize ITB to teach his mixing method so that you can recreate the whole thing in your home studio if you choose. So I'm very excited to have Michael joining us again today to talk about his philosophy of mixing and the migration over to mixing in the box. Please welcome back to the show, Michael Brauer, to Recording Studio Rockstars. Michael, are you ready to rock yet again, man?
Yeah, we could try it and hopefully not repeat ourselves.
Yeah, a little bit of an inside joke, rock stars, because we had to start the interview all over again already. Nothing like setting up a USB mic to try and do podcasts, right?
Yes, and we found all the ways for it not to work.
Can you Brauerize Zoom for us too? That's what I'm using now, and it might need a little help.
Yeah, that's next.
All right.
That's next on my checklist.
All right, Groovy. Well, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for your patience with the setup. Last time we talked, I think you were, just settled into your studio or had been in there for a bit, but I'm guessing you've made some changes since then. So maybe this was a little over a year ago. What kind of stuff would you have to say about your setup now? Is it worth, discussing some of those differences?
Well, interestingly, I've actually reintroduced a little bit of hardware, but don't tell anybody. I had some great toys, and I sold a lot of it because I really didn't need it, and I don't regret any of those sales. But I did keep a few, and recently I had them in storage over at Alto, and I was missing a few pieces of gear. And one of them is the MXR phaser flanger. That has not been modeled yet. It's a great sound, and the way I have it set up, cascading one into the other, is very unique, and it's just a great sound. And I like putting those on Rhodes and a number of different instruments. So I pulled that out of storage, and then I think since we talked, my Motowns that I sold were cloned as plugins, but also as hardware called Motor City. And I have a couple of those. The hardware sounds great. The UADs sound, like 99.9% the same. They're really, really great. But UAD did some really clever designing of adding more EQs and also adding a mastering version of it with mids and sides that I use all the time that I could never get from the hardware version. I mean, the original hardwares. And then a couple other toys. Ones that I had are LA3As that are modified. And the way I had it modified is that I have both the LA3A and the LA2A cans in there. So the LA2A cans are a little slower release and attack. It's a really cool sound. I love that on piano. I mean, almost exclusively I use them on piano. And I recently finished mixing Ben Folds' new record. And I had that on the piano on every song. And it just, it would remind me how happy I am that I didn't sell those.
Yeah, really.
And then I have the EAR 660 that I use often either on bass or lead vocal. There's a couple other toys that I might pull out of storage, but I'm so happy with everything else that's in the box that it's not like I feel like I'm compromising at all. I mean, for sure, I can do a lot more with what's in the box than I could have when it was either hybrid or in the desk. Transients, levels, there's a lot of things that really was limiting in this every sense of the word.
Right.
When I was in the analog world, and then even when I was in the hybrid, because the hybrid, all I was doing was really replacing an analog console with a digital, the S6, beautiful S6 console that I miss. Well, not console.
Right. Yeah.
Control surface. It looks like a console, so I'll call it a console.
Those things really do look gorgeous. They're very tempting. I was surprised when I saw the price point on one of them too. I was like, I want one of those. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it was, But for me, I wanted a console.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted it to look like a console, move like a console, everything about it. And so that's basically what I had, because I think I had 36 channels, and it's a beautiful piece. It's like a Rolls Royce. I have now the S1, which is really kind of like a Rolls Royce, but you get roll up windows, no AC, and but it's still really, really cool.
Yeah, I think you have a few of the S1s, 3 of them or something like that. Is that right?
I have 3. Yeah, I have to at least have 24 channels because I mix with both hands. It's kind of like piano playing. Or maybe playing the piano.
Yeah, one of the two. But making sure that you mix it through an LA3A, right?
Yeah. So I love it, and I mean, if I could put 4 in here, I would have, but there was no room. But I'm good. I'm good with 24. And and then the difference between, I mean, a year ago, wow, I have learned so much, and I've really developed a lot of stuff, a lot of ways, and which is all revealed in the latest Pure Mix interview that I did.
That's an amazing,
really,
fantastic video. You had, before we did the interview, you had let me know about that, and I went and I've watched the entire thing in an epic sprint over the past couple of days.
Oof.
And I learned a lot. It's very cool. You talked about your love for piano, and I think you were talking about how much Elton John meant to you and that piano sound. Is that correct?
Yeah, that started many, many years ago on Elton's first album. The way the piano shimmered when he would play it, I had never heard anything like that. And my buddies at Electric Lady, they were actually, at the time, they were my teachers, Harvey Goldberg, specifically. We talked about that piano sound a lot. And I mean, everybody at Media Sound loved that sound. So they were all getting it. And so we learned how to get that sound. And so it was always something that I strive for, and you can hear it in all my records, starting with even Luther's Never Too Much, when you hear that piano coming and ba, 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 and to this day, and the LA3As were part of that sound, and going into a couple of Pultecs where he's just jammed up. I don't remember if it could have been 4K on one side and 5 or 8K on the other side, but way far with a kind of a slower release, which the LA2As would be great for. And I think originally they were the LA2As, but once I modified my LA3As, I used the LA3As.
Nice.
And so as it slowly releases, all the harmonics of the piano would come up. And if you do a fast release, then you've got that shimmering going on. It was just my favorite sound ever.
And there's a thing about the bite to a well-mixed piano too, where it's an attack that's just lovely.
Yeah, it's great. And when I was mixing Ben Folds, the first record I did with him, Song for Silverman, he doesn't have a guitar player, so he showed me, the way he likes his piano EQ to make up for what the guitar mid-range would be. And so there was a lot of that 4K and other things. That was such a cool idea. And so, of course, I learned more from that, from working with Ben.
Did he bring in a Marshall stack to show you what it sounds like in the control room? I've seen him do that. I've seen him do the, I think I've seen him throw his piano stool across the stage to hit the keys for just.
Yeah, he usually does that quite well.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it to ever hurt the piano.
Yeah, it's a soft stool.
It's huge soft. He did have a little bit of an accident once, and he was unbelievably miserable for doing that, and he made good, but that's very, very carefully planned so that it just goes poof. It's like throwing a pillow at it.
It's like being a magician and sawing the assistant in half. You don't actually saw the bone.
Oh, and if you do, you definitely don't want to do that twice.
Ben Folds was one of the first artists I ever saw when I moved to Nashville. He had a band called Jody's Power Bill. And he had a single that was playing on college radio at the time and taken off, and he was an up and comer, I guess.
Oh, he He was here, actually. It's the first time I allowed anybody to really stay in my house while I'm mixing. But I love Ben, and Joe, the producer, was with him, and we had such a great week. You know, I'd be mixing all day, and then I'd be cooking for them, and then
Nice.
it was really, really a fun week. I love those guys.
So like I said, I really enjoyed going through the Brauerize ITB and Pure Mix Rockstars. I highly recommend you go check that out. It is a ton to learn and really fun to just hear you talk about all this stuff. And then I took lots of notes. They're probably in no particular order of relevance, as far as question stuff. And I've got a few more questions from the rock stars too. But would you like to talk just a little bit about what the experience was for you putting that together?
It was actually, I was streaming like you wouldn't believe. When you're watching that, you're not seeing any edits. I mean, I would stream the thoughts like for 25 minutes without a stop, and Fab, who was directing it, he was like, what? And I was on a roll. I think that's also because I've spent many years teaching it, when I was doing seminars, or still am, but just haven't been doing them for a while. I don't know. I was on a flow, but I think it's really important before you get into watching it that I'm sure I said it. I can't bear to watch something I've done, so I'm going to assume that I said these things, but it's really just a tool. And it's a very, very complicated one that's been even called wacky, and it is. But if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, the engine itself, getting that to run is very complicated. But if you pick up the hood of a Ferrari, all right, you look at it and you go, oh my God, but you're not driving the engine. The hood is down, you're in the driver's seat, and all the automation and all the cool stuff, whether it's that or, a Volvo or any good car, it is all automatic, and you just enjoy the ride. So it's important not to get intimidated or start getting too critical of, well, this is too complicated. Well, a lot of things are too complicated in the beginning because you have to just learn how it runs. But once you have it set up and you understand how to run it, how to mix into it, then you leave it and forget it, right? You set it, boom. I don't touch any of that stuff. But the difference for everyone is that you are now mixing into compression. That's what it's about. It's the more you understand that sound and how it plays, it becomes the opposite of what you've been told about compression. It actually makes things more dynamic. It makes your music actually move. You can hear the dynamics without even moving the faders. There's more depth, there's more width, there's more warmth. It's just an incredible tool that allows any style of music to be used. So, but it takes time to learn and to hear that way.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One Reaper, or whatever you're using. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. The JZ Microphone Vintage series are built by hand in Latvia, featuring the patented golden drop capsule design for enhanced clarity that will give your recordings that classic vintage tone. You're hearing my voice right now on the JZ V12 mic. Our friends at JZ Microphones have come up with a special offer only available to Recording Studio Rockstars listeners, so use the limited time coupon ROCKSTAR to get 40% off the V67, V47, and V12 microphones. Go to jzmic.com and get your vintage mic now. Yeah, it was really cool to watch you after you and Fernando had explained what the bones of this thing were, to watch you just pull up a mix, and there you were with the S1s, with the faders, just sort of with your eyes closed, pushing up sounds until it started to feel right.
That's it. And it's that simple, because at the end of the day, it's not the Brauerize thing that's making it a good mix. It allows me to be as creative as I want to be. And everything that I teach is really not about the tool itself. In fact, I find it extremely boring. Like, you will not see me doing another video like that ever, unless there's a complete new, evolving approach that, I need to discuss and get that done with. I mean, I really, I didn't want to do it for a long time. And I was like, okay, it has to be done. So
yeah.
Get it out of the way, because that in itself is just simply not important. As what is the philosophy? What are you thinking about when you sit down to mix a song? That's all that counts. And whether it's my approach or the traditional approach or some other approach, it doesn't matter. None of those are going to work if you don't sit down and you're trying to bring an emotion out of a song. You're trying to tell the story through the singer, through what has been recorded.
Now, in all fairness, Michael, I think you did talk about how when you started out, you used to actually stand up and dance around while you were mixing, and that's how you could tell if it was feeling good to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, whether you're standing or sitting, I did a lot of dancing around because I always wanted to be performing.
Yeah.
To me, I was a drummer in a band. I really missed that when I got off the road. I mean, I really, really missed it. It was depressing to me. And so the reason why all that started happening is that in my mind, as I was mixing, I used to hark back to when I was on stage, right? So in my mind, I imagined that I was performing, except it wasn't drums anymore. Now I was everything. I was like, the ultimate air playing, where you're just, you're doing air guitar, you're doing air drums, you're doing air vocal. I was like the puppeteer, and I could just play all these instruments and I just perform, and I would ride the vocals, and I just wanted to feel like I was back on stage again. So I was always pushing in that, and I didn't know that was any different than anybody else was doing. I just wanted to feel like I was back on stage. And then people would listen, they go, wow, it sounds so spontaneous. It sounds so alive. I'm like, well, that's the way I'm thinking. So it makes sense that it would feel alive, and so that in itself is an interesting observation, is that what are you thinking about when you're mixing? Are you thinking about balancing? Or are you just thinking about the song and the performance, and what is the story about? What is he or she telling you? Is it a sad story? Why are you making it sound so happy or angry? It's supposed to be happy. Why are you so focused on balancing? Balancing on its own means nothing. It's of no importance if you're trying to make sure that the guitar balance. It's not about that. It's about how are you going to bring the story out and bring out the most important elements in a song. I mean, when there used to be only six instruments playing, it's kind of easy.
Right.
When you get into 30 or 40, and if you're not focusing on the right thing, you're bringing up everything that's supposed to be a support, and then all the main elements, the ones that really are the hook and the what really drives a song is hidden somewhere because there's no more room for it because you're not focusing on what are the main elements of telling the story here.
Yeah.
So,
when you were mixing in the video, it was cool. You could see that I don't even think you pulled up the drums at first. I think you pulled up something else in the vocals and, found what you described to be the heart of the song. And then you bring in the drums later and it's like, oh, they just sit just right because everything was set up right to accept that.
Right. I mean, how many times, and look, I did this enough times. I've made all the mistakes to know what really works for me, right? I've been around long enough to make every possible mistake. And I found quite often when I was starting with drums, by the time the vocals came around, I realized that I had the wrong drum sound. And I get all pissed off and I go, shit, it shouldn't have been so roomy, or it shouldn't have been this, or it should have been that. And I'm like, why does this happen to me? It's not my fault. And then, I don't know, something happened one day. I kind of remember a particular record, but it probably had already started way before that. But I was like, why don't I just start with what the song was written on? Let's see, it was written on the piano. All right, so I put in the piano, I put the vocal in. I go, well, what else is, if this artist was performing in a cafe, what, they can't bring all 40 instruments, right? So how are you going to get the essence of the song, right? Well, it was written, she played it on the piano. Okay, so I'll do the piano and the vocal. And maybe it was a matter of a tambourine, was like so important to it. So the tambourine comes up, and then you start adding, there's a really cool little acoustic guitar that's just fluttering around. Okay, so let's see that. That's kind of busy. What's somebody else? I just throw faders up. I call it discovery. I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
I'm not serious. I'm not thinking. I'm just having fun. Like, what does this sound like? It's too busy. That's wow, that's really important to me. That really tells the story quickly. All right, I leave that up. So now I've got three or four elements. Now as I start bringing other ones, if I start losing the ones that are the important elements to the song, then I do either I EQ them, I bring them down, I do something to them, I pan them somewhere else so they don't blur the story that I've already got going. So as you're slowly building all this up, by the time you bring the drums up, as soon as you bring the kick, the snare, and the stuff, you know exactly what the sound should be, right? It's a continuation of what works for this song. And I ended up getting drum sounds in like 10 minutes because of that, because I knew exactly what needed to be done, because you're not wrapping everything around the drums.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that when it's really a groove and the song is around the groove of the drums and the bass. Or when I was doing R&B, there was no need for me to start anywhere else, right? Or if it's a funk or it's driving. I mean, there's exception. At that point, that's the drums. When you've got the drums, the bass, and the guitar going, right? You got the rhythm section, and that feels great. You're not going to find yourself going, shit, that was the wrong drum sound later on, because if something else makes it go wrong, then you should look at what made it go wrong, because it was fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's exceptions, but quite often you don't have to start with drums and bass.
Well, it's
at least in my view, and that's when I started getting mixes nailed a lot quicker and more in what was really the vision.
It reminds me of building a song in the studio, the times where you start by building the drums first, and then you go to add the vocals and the acoustic guitar later on. You're like, oh crap, we turned this song into a rock production when it was meant to be something else. And so it makes sense to think about mixing in a similar way. Start with the elements that are central and let it grow around that too,
Yeah, and I think at least my friends that I know, I mean, this is obvious to them. This nothing I'm saying here is like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, when I talk to Manny and we're talking shop, or just talking about stuff, he and I have almost identical philosophies on what how to go about the emotions and how you bring those out and all the things. I never really discuss that kind of stuff with anybody, but you bring this stuff up and your buddies are going, oh yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And then you go, wow, it's interesting because it seems so foreign to a lot of people.
Well, you had a great quote that I wrote down from the course where you said, I think you said, sonically good without sonically soul is crap. And I love that. It was like, it's just that reminder. It's like, we get stuck on this, like, what's better? What sounds better than what? And we forget that it's irrelevant. It has to be in the context of the soul of the song and everything, or else there's no basis for any of it.
I mean, yeah, that in a nutshell is what I'm talking about. It's not, and that's why I said balancing. What's the point of it? It's balancing is a result of the proper feel for a song. It's not the other way around. If you balance things well, then you get the soul and you got everything else. No, that's makes zero sense to me. I don't know,
Yeah. So let me see, at the risk of asking questions about stuff that's getting too granular, you developed a way of mixing with multiple buses and things. And what I seem to understand is that you found ways to take things that were making elements of the music great and combine them so that you had a little bit of all those things, and also so that you don't try and make everything compete for the attention of one compressor, for example. Atom Audio introduces the all-new A7V monitor with rotatable HPS waveguide for the accelerated ribbon tweeter and advanced onboard DSP-based room correction using the included A-Control software or optional SonarWorks software with a measurement mic, allowing you to tune your speakers for your room, your mix position, and your ears anytime you want. Get the extended 5-year warranty for monitors that will improve as your studio improves at atomaudio.com. It's amazing that we can create professional mixes using a computer in our home studios, but trying to mix with a mouse, it's like trying to play the guitar with the tip of a pencil. It sucks. And why shouldn't you be able to mix as naturally as you play the guitar? That's why I upgraded my studio to include the SSL UF8 fader pack and UC1 channel strip controllers. They let me mix as fast as I can feel the music. Go put the fun back into your mixes at solidstatelogic.com. So what do you think of when you think about the bones of a mix in terms of height and depth and width and things like that?
Let's back up a little bit, because I understand what you just said. But somebody who just heard you is thinking beer baseball at this point. They're like they're like moving on to something else. That they're looking at the kitchen, wondering if they want a sandwich or something,
Yeah.
Because I know what you're saying, and I barely hung in there, right? Because right. Okay, what the hell did you just say, right? Let me talk to it in a layman's terms.
I love it.
Of that. Okay. And again, I have to tell you right off the bat that for a lot of my friends, most mixers, this is not an issue for them. Right. So when I talk about how it's a problem for me, they go, I don't know what your problem is. It's not a problem for me. So let me just start off with that. All right. Now, so if you want to buy into this, describing what you have just said about what I do, and then regurgitating it into more of a
more eloquently.
Well, no, it's not that more eloquent. Just try to make it as simple as possible to explain it, because the philosophy of that is a little bit, say what? You know, the problem I used to have, and it really came to a head on a very, very important record, on the Aretha record, the Freeway of Love record, that when I had a great sound on the drums and the bass and the guitar, and everything is going to the stereo compressor, right? It all sounded good. It just had a good movement, good groove going. Then, maybe I add another guitar and then a piano and then some sustaining stuff and then the horns or whatever. And then the vocals. By the time I get the vocals, the groove that I had going is now everybody's going into that compressor. And so, you know how compressors react. They react really to low end, mid-range, low mid-range. Top end doesn't really, trigger things often, although you can, there's many ways to get it to do that. But in the most part, compressor just starts reacting to low end, mid-range. So as that energy starts to build up, the compressor starts to work. So then you decide, okay, well, I'm going to bring the threshold down a little bit so it doesn't work so hard. Or maybe bring all the tracks going into it down a little bit. But what I found was that the groove I had going with the drums and the bass generally would kind of disappear. It wasn't as cool as it was when I didn't have anything else going on. So what you have just described is, well, let's not have everybody going into one compressor. Let's think about that stereo. Let's make 4 stereos. But you can't have 4 stereos, so let's make them 4 sub-stereos that all sum to one stereo. That doesn't have to have anything on it, or it can. It can have something on it that glues the other 4 sub-stereos together. All right, so why 4? Well, why not? Let's have the drums and the bass. And, I was a drummer. So I always, me and the bass player, you're like tight as a gnat's ass, right? It's just, you're working real tight together. And you don't want anybody else getting in your groove. And that's kind of the way I look at it. So, the drums and the bass and the percussion, we're all together in one team. We get a groove going. Everybody else stay away from us. So that'll be, let's call that sub-stereo B. B doesn't stand for bottom end. It just happens to be B.
Right.
But you could call it the bottom end of the record. But bottom end is not EQ because there's full bandwidth in drums.
Yeah.
But let's just call B the bottom end of the foundation of the record, if you want to call that. That's dangerous too. All right, fine. So now we got a groove going. Now let's add some guitars. Well, sorry, you're not joining our little club. We're the B club. You want to be into it. You want to play guitar with us. That's fine. We'll play together. But you play in the C club. We're next to each other, but you can't join our club.
Nice.
So, all right. So the C club, you have a compressor that goes across that kind of shimmers and works the way the guitar's with. What's going to go across the drums and the bass? Probably something that really has maybe a quick attack and a really, really quick release, and just really punchy sounding. And so now whatever the guitars are doing, it's not going to change our groove. Me and the bass player, we're jamming along. We're not going to get crushed. We're not going to get more compressed or anything and start squeezing and stuff and complaining. Nothing to complain about. It feels good. Guitar can do whatever he wants, hit the compressors. Now remember, we're mixing into compression here. Because when you're saying, well, you can just compress less, we're not doing pre-compression. We're mixing into these sub-stereos.
Yeah.
And then all right, so now the guitars are really happy, and and the guitar's like, I don't want no keyboards in my club. It's just guitar club. That's it. So then you've got, all right, so keyboards, sustaining, anything sustaining, organs, synths, all you guys, you can join the party too, but you're in your own
Get
club.
your own party.
We'll call you the A club. All right, A club. All around. You're all around us. It's good, but you're not messing with our grooves. And so that kind of compressor is more lush, and for me, it's a 33609. It works beautifully with things that are sustaining. All right. And we'll even throw the horns in there, no problem, strings. And, so that's the concept. Then, I can keep going, but so now you got these three sub stereos, and there's independence between the instruments, the groups of instruments.
Yeah.
And then they all sum to one stereo. And you can either put something in there that maybe glues them all together a little bit or not. It's your choice.
Yeah.
But that's what you were saying. So now repeat what you just said. And let's see if everybody, now it makes more sense. Do you remember what you just said?
Well, I don't know if I remember it verbatim, but essentially it was the concept of if you start out trying to pack everything into one compressor, you may find yourself with nowhere to go, like no room to breathe. You can't, it sounds good for some of the stuff, but then when you try and finish it out and add the rest of it or the vocals, to try and hear one instrument seems to sort of kill the ability to hear another instrument in the right kind of way. And letting each bus and compressor handle the instruments in such a way that they don't mess up what was great about the other instruments. So the guitars don't mess up the rhythm section of the drums and bass.
I've influenced you so much now that you're basically saying what I say. But now everybody, what you're saying makes way more sense to me, even though, because I've just explained it, and I think for those who are listening are going to go, oh, okay. So if you go back and actually listen to what you had said earlier, or maybe you can copy and paste or something,
well, I'll remix it.
Then, and that's the essence of what's going on. And, 99% of those who don't do it this way seem to be fine. I mean, I remember the first time I had just mixed Parachutes, and I was at the Townhouse, and I was mixing the Pet Shop Boys, and Spike was downstairs doing something, always something great, and I was playing him, Parachutes, and he was asking about my approach, and I was, telling him how I do it, and then he was like, oh, well, I do the same thing by just doing this. And he brought up like, a send return of the drums and the bass, or the kick and the snare, like really, really compressed. And he just add that for the punch and stuff. And it was like, that's the way I do it. And I was like, God, so everybody has their own way. But having said that, I think my approach, really likes all different styles of music. It's just, there's so many options to get what you're looking for so quickly. So it's not like when I saw what Spike had done, I was like, oh, I'm going to drop this. I just laughed because there's so many different ways to get what works for you.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about, borrowing techniques from people. I mean, we borrow from each other all the time, right?
First of all, I didn't invent anything. I took existing approaches that have been around forever. I took the multi-bus approach. I took the parallel compression approach. I took the send return approach. I did all of those things that were in themselves had been around, but then I put them all together, and that's what became unique. Is just that approach. And why? Because I wanted to make what I did more dynamic, within the scope of my levels that you're only allowed, well, back then, I think you were allowed 3 or 4 dB. Now I think you're allowed 0.1 or something. But, back then, I by doing that, but even 2.5 dB, the way I was mixing, there was an implied loudness. It felt like it was louder. It felt like, it not loud like it's plus 90, that the dynamics, that there seemed to be more implied dynamics than there actually was. And that was one of the kind of benefits of this approach, the little bonuses that I was like, yeah, it just feels louder, more dynamic when I say that. It feels like it gets more dynamic, but in fact, the meters are not moving as much as what you seem to be hearing.
Interesting. Yeah. In the course, at one point, you guys demonstrate, you show what the mix is doing, and then you just turn off all the buses. And it's a really remarkable thing that you hear. It's just, with the buses happening, everything just kind of like comes to life a little bit. And it's almost like,
right.
It almost becomes a little bit 3-dimensional, and it comes out of the speakers.
Exactly that. The first time I tried that, I'm not afraid to embarrass and humiliate myself sometimes when I really believe what I'm doing is right. And when I say that is, there was a point where I thought, what if I just show what it would be like to take an existing mix of stems, right? It's not like I'm starting from scratch. I've got stems. Let me put all that through the stereo bus. And I'm not going to touch any of the faders. All right, so we listen to that. We got a good balance, and I print it. And it was like one of those spontaneous things. I'm doing the mix with the masters, and it's like, 15 people there who have come from everywhere to watch me. And I'm thinking, as I'm trying to doing this, I think, God, if I blow this, if this sounds like shit, they're all going to be looking at me like, I can't believe I just got fooled by this asshole, right? And so I'm thinking about this. I'm like, you shouldn't do this without at least making sure it works. Like you should have tried this last night. I've got that little guy on my shoulder going, don't do this. You're going to regret it. And the other one goes, you're fucking good. It works. Right?
Right.
So I said, all right, so now let's see what it sounds like if I assign the drums to B and the guitars to C and the vocals to A and D, do all the things that I do. I go, and I'm not going to touch the faders. And I swear, as I'm doing this, I'm like,
this better work.
This better work. This better work. And then I do it, and then I hit play. And it was, it's not a thing that was like night and day. It was an emotional night and day. In other words, you could hear movement, and you can hear a little bit more depth. You could hear a little bit more width, and all those things were happen. It was like 10%, right? There was a 10% difference, but it was not a sonic. It was more of an emotional, right? Emotional feel, because you could hear some of the instruments moving, right? There was a movement going on. And everybody in the room, you can't fool 15 people. You can't say, wow, it sounds awful, but it must be good. It was really, really cool. And everybody they were just shaking their head. It was just like, and because I hadn't touched the faders. And I was like, whew, big old drop of sweat dropping down the side, of relief, because in fact, what I always felt that that's what it was doing, right? But I never actually did that kind of a drastic, let me show you.
That's awesome.
Because theoretically, it should do exactly what I was hoping it would do. And it did.
The OWC Envoy Pro Electron is your super fast and rugged pocket-sized portable USB-C SSD that keeps your music safe in the studio or on the stage. With storage of up to 2 terabytes and speeds of up to more than a gigabyte per second, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron gives you high-speed audio data for recording and playback. Take your sessions and sample libraries with you anywhere you go. Built for reliability, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron is waterproof, dustproof, and crush-proof, so there's no need to worry about your music anymore. Find the new Envoy Pro Electron and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars and use the custom link below in our show notes because it's a great way for you to help support this podcast. So thanks, Rockstars. There's a lot of junk that needs to get cleaned up in a podcast or music mix. Boomy pops on the microphones, piercing sibilants, background noise, harshness, distortion, wild dynamics, and EQ correction. And all this editing and mixing cleanup would be impossibly time-consuming were it not for the magic of iZotope RX, Ozone, and Neutron. iZotope gives you a collection of plugins for mixing in your DAW to manage plosives, clicks, S's, noise, buzz, reverb, breaths, and even guitar fret squeaks with set it and forget it simplicity. Check out the new Repair Assistant plugin to help you find the perfect mix prep settings for any instrument. And the standalone RX app includes new features like text transcription and multiple speaker recognition for easy editing and navigation. Try out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at iZotope.com/rockstars or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session, the second half of the show. My guest today is Michael Brauer, joining us from his studio in New York. You're how far outside of the city are you again, Michael?
I'm about 130 miles.
Okay.
I'm up in the Catskills.
Oh, nice. The Catskills. Joining us from his studio in the Catskills. Are you ready to jam? You know what?
As long as we have internet.
Yeah, we got some.
That's one of the things that happens here. You know, you're talking and suddenly power goes out and.
Yeah, but then you're stuck in a beautiful place. So what can go?
Yeah, I'm not complaining, but this interview would end.
And I think we had mentioned this before, but I know you're an avid bike rider. Is that a great place to ride a lot up there?
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, all you have here. Sorry, I dropped my AirPod fell out of my. Yeah, there's nothing but climbing and descending here.
Oh, I know those kind of hills.
So it's great riding, and I had a coach for 2 years ago. I started really getting back into it because I used to race for 10 years. I got a coach. I mean, once I moved up here, I'm like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm here 7 days a week. So, you know, I'm not just biking on weekends anymore. I've got the ability to bike 5 days a week if I want, right? So
nice.
Got a coach, and then I changed coaches about 4 or 5 months ago. Great. Just a great coach. He was a former pro Tour de France racer and just great guy, Tom Danielson, Cinch Cycling. And so I've been training with him, and I went to Colorado a couple weeks ago to train with him. It's great. I mean, you know, you can't just have all your eggs in one basket. And I don't mean financial eggs, but just all your focus. That you need a break from what you do here. You need other interests.
Yeah.
It's so important because otherwise you're going to burn out. And you're going to burn out whoever's with you, you know? So I always loved biking. I stopped for a while and now I'm back on it. And I'm definitely want to, you know, take it to the next step, which is back to racing again, which is clearly dangerous, but I don't think about that. I just, you know, I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but the kind of training I'm doing, which is up to about 12 hours a week, 180 miles
Wow.
up here in the Catskills.
That's intense.
What am I going to do with it? So,
yeah, but it's good to just have that reminder too. I mean, I think many of us need to be reminded that just the sedentary life of studio and mixing also can be stationary a lot of times, and interacting with computers. It just like got us into this little box for so much of what we do, that it's important to balance it out with some healthy lifestyle.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, look, we all know when you're first starting out, you need to really commit 100%. And therefore you should. But there's a point where you have to step back a little bit. And even when you're committing to 100%, all your days and weekends and stuff, yeah, I mean, it takes that kind of commitment. But when you do have some time off, assuming you don't have a partner that you should be focusing on 100% also during those times, that you really should do something physical. It's because you're not doing anything physical except for you're not doing anything physical. Your brain is moving, but your body is pretty, stationary. And you need a balance. You need the body to be doing some exercise. So whatever you want to do, you don't have to go to the extreme that I did. I happen to enjoy the competition of racing because I was outside racing on a team that had 7 or 8, 9 other people, and the way to win was really about strategy and teamwork. And you're outside and it's physical. It is seriously physical. While the competition that goes on in the studio is really mental, and you're in a vacuum, and you're alone, and there's generally no windows. I never liked a studio with windows because then I could see the day change.
Yeah. And
the shadows is what would mess with me. The console would keep changing, the buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't, when I'm mixing, I don't want to be aware of time. I just want to be mixing a song. So, and the competition, even though you're in a vacuum, is that you have to be doing your best at all times. And then if you're mixing some great music and it gets out there, people will notice that it's not just the song, that, you had something to do with helping that vision. And when somebody picks up like 5 or 6 different records that they absolutely love, and they start looking at who mixed it, it happens to be, Tom Elmhurst. Fuck, I love that guy.
Right.
So suddenly, you're off and running and you want to see what else, you recognize Tom as a force, because now you're saying, well, I love this record and that record and that record. And, he did them all. So that's, I think, how the reputation starts to grow when you find yourself without even trying, you just happen to pick a bunch. So whether it's Tom or it's with me or, the other guys, I think that's how it starts. Although, I don't know, in the last 10 years, it's almost impossible to know who worked on the record. Forget the engineer,
yeah, just
the mixer.
Credits, like lack of credits and things.
Who even wrote the song, right? I mean, it's a real drag unless you go to Tidal, I think, and that they're the only ones who offer to show credits. I mean, what do people do? I don't understand that. It just seems
Google Wikipedia and hope that they get some accurate answers or something.
Yeah, that's so wrong. And you'd think that, come on, guys, come on, Spotify, come on, Pandora. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they do that now, but I haven't noticed.
No, I tend to not. Generally speaking, I find it's the credits aren't there.
Yeah, and guys who are up and coming or trying to break through. How do you break through when nobody even knows you just mix a really great record? How does that happen?
Well, it used to be as easy as just you look at the front cover of the record, you turn it over, and there's what you need to know. And the digital experience should be that simple. You shouldn't have to figure out where to click and what to do.
You should click on an artist. There should be, with all the little things that they have, all the little icons of, share and send and delete and block and, how many hits has it had? Okay. How about the little one that says credits?
Yeah. They've already got a heart, right? And a thumbs up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really important. I'll take a thumbs up over who worked on this record. I mean, what the fuck?
Maybe they just need to put up a fader. Just put a fader there. Remix it. Well, we got a couple of questions in here from the rock stars. So I thought I'd jump over and share those with you, if that's all right, Michael.
Let's do it.
Here's one from Adam Shaw, no relation to me, but a great guy. Who said, what is an example of an out-of-the-box analog mix song from your extensive catalog that could benefit from a revisit with the new digital Brauerize ITB if you could have the chance to redo it? Well, that's a dangerous question. How do you want to answer that one?
Well, the answer to that is I wouldn't, because the whole point of ITB was that it was emulating what I had been doing out of the box. So it's not like now the box sounds better. I mean, there are things about going in the box that are certainly more convenient and technically I can do that I could never do in the analog world. But this whole thing started in the analog world. And I slowly over the years figured out how to get it to work in a hybrid state. And then from the hybrid state to work into the all in the box state. So there would be really nothing that I could say, wow, in the box, if I had a shot at doing this very same thing, because again, you're talking about a tool. What? So now a tool is going to sound better one way or another? No, it was always about the creativity. All that is just allowing me to be more creative. So the tool is still just a tool. It's no different when it was in the analog world as it is for hybrid or it is in the box. And the convenience is that I can maybe across the fader, I can automate a compressor coming in and out or an equalizer coming in and out, or Jason Joshua's God Particles. It's such a cool thing. Now, the way he works it, he developed that plugin to replace everything that he used to put in, right? I like what I have, and I figured out, well, how do I apply his cool sound if I want to pop it into a chorus or something? I mean, it clearly is going to change the direction and the poppiness or whatever when I throw that in there. So it has to be appropriate, but I don't put it at 100%. I'll put it in at 70%, and there's a couple other things I do in there. But I could have never done something like that in the analog world. You're in or you're out, unless you want to
cut up a lot of tape, right?
Yeah, use up a lot of tape and edit, and that. I mean, there were days when I did things like that occasionally, but so there's that, and there's of course the de-essing tools, the RX tools. Yeah. There's just so there's a lot of great stuff that I'm so happy was invented. I mean, Isotope, they definitely, I'm sure they won a lot of awards, but the Peace Award is like, the one is that they should have won that one. But so to answer the question, it was never about the tool, it was about my creativity. Now, if you're asking, would I want to go back and forget forget what I've learned, what I've put together in the box? And my answer to that is no, because once I'm done and I'm happy, I'm done with it. I don't finish a song thinking, wow, if I only had 10 more days, I mix a song in 3-4 hours, and then I'm happy to, do recalls with the artists until they're really happy.
Yeah.
And then I move on. I just don't spend the time. It's the past.
It's like a performance, a solo. You perform it.
It was a performance. Right? Could the performance be better? Maybe. Do I care? No, I don't care. It was what it was then. I'm proud of what I did. It's not like I ever get up in the morning and go and mix a song and think, I think I'm going to do a shit job. Or, you know what? I'm a little drunk today. I think I'll do like 80% job, but nobody's going to notice. Like bullshit. I go in and I'm going to do the best I can because it is a performance. And it's not about me. This is somebody who has spent their life, their career depends on this song coming out in the vision that is intended. And if they're going to pay me, pay a guy, a top mixer to visualize their work and their story, you got to take that part of it really seriously. It's not just like, well, you know who I am, I don't have to care. It's like I've never felt that. I've always felt how important it is to do my best. That doesn't mean that you're going to please everybody. That's why there's revisions. And then even then, there's some people who go, that's just not what I want to hear, and I don't even want to look at you again. I mean, that's rare because if that stuff happens a lot, then you're probably not going to be very busy. But it's happened to all of us. And we just kind of scratch our head and go, this is good. I don't know, and I've changed. I mean, I've put faders down and started all over again. It's not like my ego is like, well, this is it, take this or fuck off. But I want,
Do you print it before you tear the faders down?
I'm sorry?
Before you tear the faders down, do you go, wait, let me just print that once and then we'll tear the faders down?
Oh, it's always printed. Before anybody hears anything, it's printed. Yeah. I always did that. And make sure that there was that it was recorded, the notes were taken, and when it was on the SSL, that's it. I mean, and there were times when you go do exactly what they wanted to hear, and then a week later they say, you know what? By accident, I was listening to the first mix and I love it. Can we just go back to that and maybe add a little bit of, yeah, sure. If you have the notes and you did the saving, you can do that. Otherwise you're like, so yeah. No, I always print before I send anything out. But I love what I do and I'm really proud of it. I always want to be doing the best I can. So it's, and I mean, any of my friends are going to tell you the same thing. I mean, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So here's another question. This comes in from John Heiler, if I'm pronouncing your last name right, John. He says that maybe if you have had so much chance to talk about the Brauerize technique and you're ready to talk about some other things too, he just wanted to know, like, what kind of things are you thinking about these days? What sort of stuff are you really excited about right now in the studio and with mixing?
Oh, well, I would say on Atmos. And, you mentioned Fernando earlier. Fernando's been with me for, I think, almost 6 years as my first, I was an intern, then a second assistant, then a main assistant. And he has trained other assistants. It's been very, very difficult process for us teaching new assistants in the remote world. And we have done some misses in that respect, trying to figure out it's a whole different model. I've been training for 40 years, many, many assistants, but they were always in the studio. Even picking them was from a lot of interns coming through the studio. You can just pick and choose. And I usually would watch them before I would pick them. Mm-hmm. I just would watch them doing something as simple as, maybe their job was to clean the lounge area, just see how what they're doing when nobody's watching them. Just getting to get to know them before they even think that I am watching them or acknowledging them, right? Well, those days are over because now it's all remote. Because I'm here, Fernando's in Fort Lee, and so try to find somebody to replace him. It's been really, really difficult. So where was I going with this?
Stuff you're excited about.
Right. No, I know. Sorry.
That's all right.
I can't. No, but
you were, that was good because that was one of my questions was about, what advice for finding a great assistant.
Well, we can delve into that one next, if remind me. But before I forget again, the question. So I really, really like Fernando. I mean, aside from him being really absolutely a great, great assistant, and I've had many great ones. I've been very fortunate with that. I wanted to figure out, well, when Atmos started coming out, we weren't sure whether to take it seriously or not. And I said to Fernando, why don't you learn it? Learn everything about Atmos, because the day's going to come, I'm going to get a call, and hopefully I can maybe start mixing the earlier, my earlier records back in Atmos.
Right.
And he did exactly that. And now at this point, he's already has his own clients. He's mixing for other people, and he would offer Atmos to his clients. So he was getting good at it and learning it and stuff. And at one point I was like, okay, so how's it going with Atmos? And he showed it to me and explained it to me, and then played me some stuff he had been doing. And I was thinking, I really, really want to continue working with Fernando. What am I going to do? And his mixing has gotten like awesome, right? So I said, well, if we're mixing records, remixing records that I've already mixed, right? You're working with the stems of my record. Who knows the sound better than me? Because you either will have been assisting on them and you already know, but you've also, that sound. You have Continue. He's really my protege, my biggest protege in that respect, right? So who can I trust more than Fernando? And so I said, you know what? For Atmos, why don't we co-mix these projects? And that's what we'll do. We'll just be a team, and we'll sell ourselves as a team. Obviously, that's going to help him because he's associated with me, and it's going to help me because I'm associated with his brilliance on this stuff, right? So that's what we've been doing, and it's amazing. And now, we could have gone in for the big bucks and, put in the whole system. I think Atmos is cool. Do I think it's going to be around many, many years from now? Well, all the major labels have, committed to it. So it's definitely going to be here for a while because their money depends on it. Their sales depend on it. But I'm not willing, I'm not Electric Lady or something. I'm in my own room here. I mean, it's small. I could set it all up and put all that money in. Does it make sense? And I decided it doesn't make sense. And Fernando thought the same way. But Fernando had been doing these Atmos mixes on headphones.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then he would take the mix, to his friend at a mastering studio and listen to it. And it was like really close. And he knew he'd go back and do some tweaking. So, I was like, all right, let's try it. And we figured out a way to do it remotely too. So because to stream when you're listening in Atmos is tough, right? We figured out, or we talked to somebody who said, oh yeah, this is what you do here's the software you need to be able to actually stream it. And so that's what we've been doing. And you can't hear all this stuff, but you get a good sense of it. And Fernando just has even a bigger imagination of where actually everything is. While I'm listening, I'm like, wow. I mean, when you're listening, and then I'm constantly going back between my stereo mix, the original stereo mix, and now the Atmos, right? And I'm like, wow, it is just so much more surrounding, and it's not effects. I just want it to be really inviting, and just like the title is, like, it's immersive.
Yeah.
So, we've been doing that, and that's what I've been really excited by, doing some of that. And then what we do is, when we mix a whole album, we go to Flux Studio, and we'll listen to the whole thing, the whole album. And then generally what we find is we do a global tweak. Like maybe the rears really needed to come up a couple of dB. And we find that the next song had the same thing. So it's globally up. And then we end up, what normally, it's a 12-song record, and we're done by like 2:00 or something. We can actually do 2 albums in a day.
Amazing.
because it didn't start like that. Like the first record we did, had a fair amount of work. And then the second one was just so much closer, because I'm telling Fernando, okay, this is what I imagined. This is what I want to happen. This is a kind of, and I'm doing this globally. Like every record, I say the same thing. I want things to be way different than, there are no rules in Atmos, right? So we're making them. We're making our own. How it should be surrounded, how it should be doing stuff. I want it, the emotion that I'm restricted by in stereo, I want to be able to really, really be able to do, as much as my mind wants to hear. And who knows better than what that is than Fernando, right? So I could say to him, all right, save the verse, save the chorus. And when the chorus happens, I want the whole width and the depth and things going above you and behind you. I want this kind of an impact. And, and so when I'm hearing it on headphones, I'm like, yeah, that sounds really cool. But then when you listen to it in Atmos, it's like, whoa, shit, that's awesome, right?
That's cool.
These are the things that have been exciting to me. I've been around since we were doing, quad, and that was like a real novelty that, died a quick death. And then there was surround, and that took a little slower death. And then there was not surround sound, but it was SACD that lasted a year. But all those things, you needed a lot of hardware, and that's what the labels were banking on. You have to buy this piece of gear and that piece of gear, and so they were making money on the hardware. And when people didn't want to buy the hardware,
it didn't.
Poof,
yeah,
the format disappeared. But with this, really, all you need are some headphones.
Yeah, it's very cool.
You don't need much more.
It makes me curious too, that to hear you talk about doing it, working on your own catalog. Then you've got the expertise and the vision to make sure that the Atmos mix not only respects the original stereo mix, but takes it to a new place that makes it feel better to you, or just makes
unfortunately, they're not calling me for all the records that I did. So, I can't laugh about that at all. It's somewhat upsetting to me, because I'm the guy who mixed it originally, and I'm quite capable of doing this in a surround sound. And so I'm not really psyched about it. But also there's stuff coming in now that isn't from my catalog. I can't really talk about, I can talk. I think Bob Dylan's coming out pretty soon, but I was originally asked to reinterpret Time Out of Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to do that is quite an undertaking, because I want to absolutely maintain the integrity of what Daniel Lanois had originally done. So just to skip ahead, I did that with Steve Berkowitz, who was the executive producer on this. And of course, Jeff Rosen, who speaks for Bob, who's Bob manager. And it really came out great. I mean, I had a friend of mine who's a true blue Dylan fan, knows every note in that record. And if he didn't like what I had done, he would have, not been gentle about it. And he loved it. So anyway, we did that. And then they asked for it in Atmos. And I was like, wow, this is going to be great. So Fernando and I did that. And then we went to the studio and Steve Berkowitz came in and listened to it. And he was just like, wow, now I understand Atmos. I mean, it's really immersive, but again, you can't make it like an IMAX traveling show, right? It can't be this novelty stuff that makes no sense to you musically, right? You're like, why, who in their right mind would be walking across your head, with a guitar? I mean, you're not going to do stupid shit where it's just distracting from the music. So what we've done is really, really musical. But again, it's just the emotional impact, the immersiveness of being in these songs was just awesome. So that's what's been going on. There's always like, new toys coming up and I'm doing, I'll just try things that are the opposite of what I would normally do just to see what it comes. I just always want to be challenging myself. I mean, that's why I think we discussed this the first round about I tend to change what I'm doing every 5 or 6 years, really going after a new thing, which means you have to drop the ideas, staying in your comfort zone. It's not something I like to hang out in for very long. I enjoy it for a little bit, but then I want to get out of there because to me, that's always like a death wish to hang out where you're comfortable for too long. So, and I get bored and decide that if I'm getting bored, maybe other people get bored, right? And I'm fighting the years I've been doing this. There's so many things that you're constantly fighting. So if you're doing stuff that's really fresh and crazy, like you might fail at it, but it's better than just sitting around and mixing the same old way.
Every studio needs a good vintage mic for that classic warm sound. Whether you're looking for those airy highs, sweet mid-range, or silky low-end, a good vintage mic can put the magic in your mixes. So it's no wonder vintage mics have been loved and praised by thousands of engineers for decades. The JZ Microphone Vintage Series are built by hand in Latvia using only the best electronic components and feature the patented Golden Drop capsule design for great detail and richness of tone that will bring that classic vintage vibe to your studio and be a real workhorse for your sessions. This time, our friends at JZ Microphones have come up with a special offer only available to you, Rockstars. Use the limited time coupon ROCKSTAR to get 40% off the Vintage Series mics V67, V47, and V12, the mic you're hearing right now, at jzmic.com. Do you want to record killer drums in your home studio? Rockstars of Drums will show you how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with examples from a Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Do you want to know how to master your own music at home? Rockstars of Mastering will show you how with plugins in your DAW so that your music will sound awesome when you finish your mixes. And if you're looking for a step-by-step solution for a pro-sounding mix that won't take years to learn, the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass with Craig Alvin will show you a proven method for creating Grammy-winning quality mixes that you can apply in your home studio right now. Or if you just need to learn the fundamentals of creating a great sounding mix, then register for my free course Mix Master Bundle to get great mixes using simple free plugins. And get started now making your best record ever at recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy. Use the code ROCKSTAR at checkout to get 10% off any course for a limited time. Question, when I think about, the way you described developing the in-the-box version of your mixing setup, and how much effort went into it with you and Fernando of taking something that you knew well as an analog sound and recreating it digitally. Now that you're comfortable in that world and functioning the way you want to, do you find it's exciting that discovering new sounds and new plugins is it somehow different or faster because you don't have to emulate something else at this point? It's just a whole new color.
That was in parallel. That was going along all the time. As I was trusting plugins more and more, I was using them more and more. And, when I had the 6 racks behind me, I would scan through the racks, and all the hardware weren't hardware. It was like
they're like spices,
sounds, attitudes, tones. Like I've got a guitar sound in my mind, but it's not on tape like that. And I kind of scan through, and then boof, something will come up. Oh my God, this would really enhance, because I already know the sound, the attitude, everything about each of those pieces of gear, right? And that's the way I was slowly transitioning to plugins, where I would use a plugin for everything to figure out what it does, just like I did with hardware. See what its limitations are. What happens when you go too far with it? Oh, I never expected that. I like that. I don't like that. You get 10 versions of an SSL. Which one do I like? Which is the vibiest of the SSL strips, right? And so I try all of them on the same material, and then I come up with that. So as I was already learning how to go hybrid, I was already getting very, very comfortable with learning new plugins and taking it slower than other friends of mine who are, have 10,000 more. And so it's always been hand in hand. And of course, now it would be the opposite. If I would have, I have no real interest in buying a piece of hardware and go, oh, this is really cool. I mean, there's no real interest for me doing that, because I don't want to say I've been there and done that, but I have been there and done that. And what excites me more is a plugin where I don't have to do a recall of it. I don't have to make sure it's working. And the real estate, I mean, and the fact that I can get up, I've got a travel rig. So I've got everything copied onto a laptop, and then I've got my UADs, I've got everything in a travel rig, right? And I've got one S1 in there. And I've got my headphones, the Audeze, the ones that Manny
Manny's
designed,
new phones, yeah.
The 500s?
I'll double check.
Whatever it is. We know what it is. Those, they are the best headphones. I mean, I've had all the Audezes, so everybody has their preference. But with the new ones, Manny nailed it, as he always nails anything he's going to be involved with. I've got that, and if I had hardware, what am I going to do? So I don't want to depend on hardware, right? So I've got everything in my plugins. I can go anywhere I want. So if I want to be training in Colorado for 3 weeks, if I'm there for a week, I'm going to leave it here because I consider that as a vacation. But if I'm going to be 3 weeks, I bring it there. I sit up on a table at some Airbnb that I'm staying at, and I can mix.
That's cool. That's cool.
Right? I just need Wi-Fi.
So those are the MM500s. You were right.
That's right. Yeah. The MM500s. Beautiful, beautiful. They're really great. And, when I talk about headphones, I talk about that. But, if you're going to do in-ears that are also really, really impressive for me, then the Audio 64s are great. There's many different models, and I think I've been given all of them to check out. You end up having your own preference. I think I've got the 18s or something. And those are really, there's unlike any other headphone. They've got these, of course, I forgot what they're called, but there's these little things that they stick in there that release the pressure. There's a name for them, and I'm sure Audio 64 is like screaming, they're called da 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 da, right? But I can't hear you. Philippe, I can't hear you. They just release so you don't feel this extra pressure when the music is playing in your
Oh,
headphones.
that's
They're
great.
really
That's
awesome.
great.
But for me, the especially when I'm doing recalls, if I'm doing something live, like I was working with Chip Matthews today. We both got headphones. I'm not going to be listening to the speakers because you get too many feedback issues, leakage and stuff. So you just work on headphones, and they're so accurate. And they're accurate in the sense of they work. The curve is perfect, because I've had headphones before where they're just too flat. I'm like, they're flat. Like, I don't care if that's flat bad is flat bad. Flat good is flat good. It's like, and I hark back to the days when I would get a track that would just sound like crap, and they go, well, I mixed it flat. And I'm like, Al Schmidt would record, not mix it, I recorded it flat. Yeah, well, Al Schmidt records flat, and you don't want to touch it because it sounds so great. Ross Hogarth, he's going to record, however he records, whether it's flat or he touches EQ or it's a mic placement, it sounds good. And these guys who would, I'd get these tracks, I go, God, these things, it sounds flat as a pancake. It sounds dead. Well, I recorded it flat so you could work with it. And I go, dude, you don't understand flat.
As a bicyclist, I think you enjoyed flat.
No. I like hills.
All right, we got another question here from this one comes in from Roberto. Roberto, I hope I say your name right. Roberto Oxman de Aragao or Aragao.
Oh, nice one.
And I know he's over in France, actually. And he says, I get it that what underlines Michael's philosophy is mixing with emotion, and all the rest is just tools and systems, so you're able to accomplish exactly that and still be competitive. I would like to know, what exactly is emotion for you? Like, are you searching for a feeling akin to when you listen to music before beginning working on this? Is it more primordial and you're chasing an infancy-like reaction? I love the translation stuff here too. From before when you even played drums, or is it a whole other intangible thing that, as Fab DuPont puts it, depends on what the mixing dude had for breakfast? He finishes out saying, Désolé de la longue question, un salut de France.
Well, having grown up in France, I know what you said. Well, the answer there is, I'm not searching for anything. I'm listening to the song, and I was like, what's the point of this song? Is this a happy song? Is this a sad song? Is this an angry song? Is this basically like a dance song? Like, the whole point of this is to be just rocking your head or jumping up and down and dancing? Is the happiness, is there desire in this? Is the sad really talking of, feeling more of sadness and anger, or sadness and distress? So as I'm listening to this song, I'm also listening to the story. Generally, if it's a good story, if it's a bad story, then it's a bad story. But, when I say bad, I mean, it's saying nothing.
Do you find yourself listening to lyrics early on, or are you like me where lyrics come last?
Oh, no. The story, it's all about the story. It's all about what the singer is portraying. I don't care about, an instrumental. I'm not making this a backing track, It's about bringing out the message of the story. So what am I looking for? I'm not looking for much of anything except for, what emotion am I getting from this? Is this generally a happy song? Okay, well then let's bring that emotion out as much as we can, right? Let's just, when I say we, I mean me and the artist, together. This is what it's about. If it's going to be an angry song, let's make it angry. The thing is, angry, you know what angry feels like? Angry doesn't feel like, I'm angry. Angry is like, I'm fucking angry. Fuck you. That's angry, right? When you listen to, like when the Ramones or Clash or, when this shit was like just crazy. Yeah, that's the emotion. If it's appropriate, if this is what they're, if this is what they're talking about, like if you listen to I did 2 Marmoset records. I think the only 2 that they did. There's an example, of System Error. Oh, I love that song. I think it's might be on the 2nd album. I mean, there's a lot of anger in there. And when I'm mixing, I'm just like, I become that character. I become that singer. So if you become the singer, then everything follows through, right? Because I become the singer. So when I'm writing the vocal, it feels like I'm singing. I'm telling the story, so that you can easily immerse yourself into how the song should feel by its natural development.
Do you find that sometimes you feel emotional, like appropriately emotionally exhausted because of the style of music?
Why not? Why not? I mean, there's, when I was mixing for Brazilian girls, there was this one song called Nuevo Americana, which I still play, which I love. It's really like grooving. I mean, it's just like a dance feel, right? But the way it goes, my neck was like a rooster going back and forth, right? And when I finished that song, I could barely move my neck for the next 3 days because I'd been like, just getting into it for like 5 hours or something. It was a long day because I had a lot of comments and we just were rocking it out. And the next day I'm like, what happened to my neck? So
that's how I feel after bike rides. Long bike rides.
But there's also a song where it could be a really sad song and maybe it reminds me of the relationship I'm in or something, and so it's okay to become totally emotional. And maybe you walked into the session, with really bad things happening in your life or something. And so maybe you're super, super angry and this is supposed to be a happy song. It's not a good idea to make that happy song angry. But what you can do is just transfer that emotion. There is an emotion there. It might be an angry emotion, but how about moving that emotion? Because now you become an actor, right? Just move for that period of time, move that emotion over to one that's happiness. First of all, that's going to make you feel good. It's like people, when you meditate, it's like you're off the record. You're off the record of what's going on for that period of time that you're meditating. I do TM, so it's 20 minutes. Like for 20 minutes, I'm off the record. So if you come in and you're mixing a song and you're feeling, one way, but the song is another one, well, you can go off the record for like that and enjoy that other emotion for, the period of time you're mixing it. And then when you're done, you can go back to whatever crap's going on in your life and deal with it. But you'll feel a lot better because you've just kind of, you had a break.
Yeah.
You were off the record emotionally from when you walked into the room, and it's cool.
I think from the last time we did an interview to now was when my girlfriend and I watched all of Twin Peaks and then learned more about David Lynch and that he's all about transcendental meditation. And that's a big part of his practice too. And he talks about how it's like very, very helpful with the creative energies coming out.
Well, there's the Lynch Foundation, and that's where, you can get teachers and stuff for TM.
That was all new to me. For 15 years, I recorded hundreds of bands like Jack White, Adele, and the Black Keys in my hay bale studio at the Bonnaroo Festival. I had to work fast and deliver finished mixes to the radio DJs within an hour, so I chose to use the solid-state Logic AWS 948 Plus for my mixing console. There's just no substitute for mixing on a real console. Until now, that is. SSL brings you the UF8 and UC1 controllers so that you can recreate the feel and speed of mixing on a console with the flexibility of mixing on your computer in your home studio. Paired with the SSL Channel Strip 2 and 4000B plugins, you can now get a world-class sound using real faders and real knobs to mix as fast as your ears will guide you. Levels, panning, EQ, and compression, they're all built right into the controllers. So go put the feeling back into your mixes at solidstatelogic.com. Atom Audio introduces the new A7V monitor for home and pro studios, the next generation of the incredibly popular A7X. The all-new A-series line of monitors delivers the same highly accurate, transparent sound and unique accelerated ribbon tweeter design that has made Atom Audio famous for over a decade, but now introduces new innovations such as the rotatable high-frequency propagation system waveguide, allowing the XART tweeter to disperse sound with controlled consistency, and DSP-based room correction and speaker voicings. Using the A-Control software or SonarWorks and a measurement mic, you can now integrate advanced filters directly onto the DSP on board the speaker to help compensate for imperfect room acoustics without introducing annoying latency or requiring plugins. This allows you to tune your monitors for your room, your mix position, and your ears anytime you want to meet your ever-evolving studio needs. Get the extended 5-year warranty for monitors that will improve as your studio improves at atomaudio.com. Okay, I have a question that is very mundane, but looking at the mixing in the box and seeing this amazing way of routing things and having plugins at the ready and things like that, very real question comes up for us, which is what happens when our computer is struggling? And so do you have any thoughts about how we should be thinking about what computer to get for the studio if we want to stay focused on the music and not focused on managing our Pro Tools session?
That's simple. Yeah, that's simple. Fernando, my computer is struggling. Can you fix it? Yes, I'll fix it. Okay. He doesn't actually talk like that. I don't know how to do any accents. All accents sound Indian to me. I don't know.
Nice.
But I can't answer that.
Well, you said you're able to put it on a laptop and take it with you. So
it's a powerful, yes. I have a very, very powerful laptop, and I have 2 octo cards. Satellites.
And that handles all the UAD plugins.
Handles all of that. I have everything I need. And I just grab my iLock, take it with me, pop that in. And before I go, I always, do a dry run. I open it up on the table upstairs. And generally the laptop always needs updating. So one of my guys will update it, and then we'll just do a quick dry run. I'll try mixing something, and then that works fine. I shut it all down. I put it back into my travel case, and then I'm ready to go. And it's I'm prepared. I mean, with the new chip coming out, I'm still on the trash can.
Okay. All right.
Here. I'm still in the trash can, and it's still working fine. We haven't gone to the new system yet because not everybody is on board. Mm-hmm. Not all the plugin, are ready to go. So eventually we'll do that, but it's still powerful enough. Everything seems to be working. Knock on, where's there some wood in there?
I saw some. There's some on the walls, right?
Oh, you're right. Actually, I'm surrounded by wood. So, it it's really, really solid. And Fernando has the identical rig as I do. And then I have the travel rig that's on a, powerful laptop. So, you know, that's about as technical as I could get with
That's
you.
good. I mean, these are the real answers that we want. It's like, had you come along and say the only way you're going to do this is to have the latest, greatest, most powerful, that would be one kind of answer. And it's encouraging to hear that, the trash can handles all this stuff. And
well, I use
a
ton of UAD. So, I've got more than enough power. I think actually here, I think I have 3 octos or something, or I have 3 cards or something. I don't have to worry about running out of power.
Okay, cool.
It's there. And why? Because some of the sessions are insanely big. But the 96, it handles fine. I get up to 196. Oh, it's like chugging along. It's like,
some mixes come in along at that high resolution.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. And generally when they do, they're not big sessions. But if they are, then I'm committing a lot.
Do you notice yourself liking, a 96K session versus a 48K, or is that kind of irrelevant? Because if it's a well-made record, they both sound great.
Well, first of all, what's my reference? I didn't record it. I don't know. I don't really know, because I'm adapting to whatever the sound is. I mean, you're not just dealing with resolution there. You're looking at how it was recorded.
Yeah.
But I can say that when I get tracks that are 44.1, I could hear the ceiling. It's crunchier.
Yeah.
And I think 48 seems to feel good. 96, really, again, the things that I'm hearing is just how open the track tends to sound, like where the cymbals are sounding. Now, was that because of the way it was recorded or not? But in generally, I just feel like the ceiling goes higher, right? And with 44.1, I mean, that's how I started when we were going digital, so I'm very familiar with that. But that's a bit crunch city. It's cool sound, but you get what you're paying for.
You get a different kind of mid, I guess, right?
Yeah, but it's okay. I don't care. I mean, I'm not like, ooh, this is 44.1. I happen to notice 44.1. I look over and I go, oh, it's 44.1. When I go off to send the mixes, and it says choose, I got to be sure I'm not choosing, 96 for a 44.1. But otherwise, I just do what I do. It's like I naturally will gravitate towards either making things more open or maybe taking out some mid-range. I'm not thinking about any of these. Yeah. Oh, what am I dealing with? Oh, that must mean this and this and that. Doesn't mean shit. I'm just mixing and whatever happens. Yeah. I just want it to sound good.
And it's cool to see that in the Brauerize ITB videos on Pure Mix is, when you're mixing, you can see the computer's over to the side. I don't even think you got the iPads on top of your S1s. I think you just have the S1s and it's just faders and and speakers and just getting into the music.
Yeah. There is these little slots here for it, but sometimes I'll put my iPhone in there or, a sandwich or something, but nice. There's no need for it. And I also, I like the monitor to be to my right. I don't like to be looking at the monitor when I'm mixing.
Yeah.
So that's my preference.
Michael, is there anything in particular we didn't talk about yet that you'd like to add in there? Because we've been going for a good long stretch and I want to respect your time.
I'm just glad we don't really talk much about technical stuff, because at the end of the day, a good example was earlier. I said, well, would you want to remix something now with your new toy? And it never has been about that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think too many people, and I say too many because having taught many, many seminars, I discover that people's focus are in such the wrong place that they're focusing on analyzing what they're doing and thinking about what they're doing and contemplating this sound over that sound, and just a lot of suffering and indecision. And all that could be just avoided if you just think, okay, I just want to, this song needs to feel happy. Okay. Well, we all know what the basic emotions are. We all know what happy feels like, and angry or sad, or when there's desire, which is a form of the happy, or dreams, dreaming. But it's all comes down to the basic, it's a form of happiness, right? That should be your guide. And when I spend that time with people, just reminding them that they have that in them, they just get a big smile on their face, because it makes mixing so much easier. And mixing is supposed to be fun. I love mixing. That's why I still do it after all these years. I still do it because there's nothing like mixing a great, fun song. There's just nothing like it. I mean, I get goosebumps. I just feel great. It is just, I love mixing. So it should be no different than when you're on stage performing. And what I notice, people are great performers, and then they sit down and they look like they're technicians. They like they're digging a grave or something. I mean, it's like, what happened to you? It's mixing. Why can't you keep continuing the performance idea? What do you mean? Well, what are you doing? Imagine what you're doing right now on stage. How would you look? How could you perform? Well, I couldn't. Yeah, because you'd be spending so much time thinking about what to do, that you wouldn't be able to perform. I go, yeah, well, then why are you doing it here? What's the difference? What, because this doesn't look like a guitar? It's still an instrument.
Yeah.
Just play it. That's really that's the advice, which is what all my friends do naturally. That's what they do. I think I started that approach again early on in our discussion. Where I brought that up. It's like, I wanted to continue performing. And so that's what I did. Had I not thought that, I don't know where I'd be now, because that came to me naturally. And then when I started figuring out, because I had to articulate it when I started teaching, I had never articulated what I'm thinking when I mix. Never. And nobody does until they tried teaching it. And it's like, whoa, that's a whole trip. It's like, now I got to articulate what I'm thinking. I don't even know what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking. So how do I explain that one to people coming in to listen to me? And that's what it comes down to, is just you're just, it's a performance. So don't forget that. And then the other thing is, when you wake up in the morning, that you really are looking forward to mixing this song, or if you're producing, that you're looking forward to producing. And that, yes, we all have a lot of stuff going on in our lives. And sometimes, we've got 10 different things going on. I mean, like talking to Fab, look at all the things he's doing all at once, right? I mean, he's running a studio that now basically he's got every room in the building going. He's got the site. He's directing these videos. He's editing the videos. He's traveling. He's mixing. He's engineering. He's producing. I mean, my brain would go, right? But he seems to be calm and having fun. All right. But, at the end of the day, when he focuses on each task, he gives it 100% and he focuses on that one. He doesn't give it 50% because he can only have enough room in his head to do that because he's trying to multitask. There's no such thing as multitasking. That fucking thing that people come up with, I multitask. No, you don't. You're actually quickly moving from one thing to another. And if you don't do it well, you don't do either of them well. So you're doing crappy 3-4 different things. Crappy.
For me, that's having a conversation and following directions while I'm driving. Those two things can't coexist. If I'm having a conversation, I will absolutely miss the turn.
Yeah. So, there's a way of doing each one and really just getting into doing it and doing it really, really well. And enjoying life, like all those things. I'm going to use again Fab as the example. It's like he's got all this stuff going on, but when we're talking, it's not like he's, oh, I can't listen to you. I've got, he's in the moment. You got to be in the moment, and then as you move from task to task, you're 100% in each one of those moments. You can't be doing this with your mind somewhere else.
Well, it's cool.
You have to focus.
It's cool to hear you describe your focus on what you're trying to do, and talking about being able to perform. It just reminds me, like, you're going to perform, you need an instrument. And what I feel like I've seen you do and what I've experienced myself at times is the most fun mixing is when you feel like you've got an instrument to play and you're not worried about building the guitar. You're just playing the guitar,
That's it. There you go. Except I get the chance to be playing all types of instruments. Right?
Yeah.
I got air guitar, I got air drums, I'm just jamming it out. I'm having fun. But again, during this whole process, I become the performer. If there's a guitar solo, I become the guy playing the solo. If I'm telling a story, I'm singing, I become that singer. So it's a whole different perspective now. So now it's a lot easier, right? You're not observing, you're in it. That you're telling it. That's where the performance comes into play, right?
That's what I really loved about mixing in my studio at the Bonnaroo Festival, which I did for 15 years, which was mixing on a console in headphones, and the band hears the same mix that I'm doing, and it was like this communication. So it really felt like a performance. It really does make it makes it fun.
As it should be. Yeah, so that's the reminder I want people to just always have at the forefront, and not get hung up on, what plugin is he using and what's the newest? Oh, I hear that, the new Abbey Roads are the best reverbs ever. Oh, I got to get those, and they'll make my whatever better. No, they don't. You just need one reverb.
Do you feel like the time you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has not gotten you anywhere? Have you been looking for a simple or straightforward step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take years to learn? What if you could learn that process from a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is for you. Now you can discover a proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Here's a quote from one of the students. Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information mentoring on the mix process I've ever been a part of. This was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session. Look, when you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and go check out Craig's ultimate snare mixing trick now for free. Michael, I probably asked you this. I'll jump to my closing question here, if that's all right. And I probably asked you this last time, but we'll ask it again because see if there's a new angle on it. But this one's hypothetical. We get to take the Wayback Studio machine and you go back in time and find, this is your choice. You can find yourself at a young age and give yourself this advice, or you could maybe go back to before the in the box thing and give yourself advice, whatever you want. But you go back and you give yourself this advice. You say, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio one day. What advice would you like to go back and give yourself?
Well, it would have to be the hardest learning experience, which was I was so precious of what I was doing. I became so precious of my mixes that I wouldn't listen to what the artist had to say for comments. And I just couldn't understand if it made me feel so emotional that anything should change of that mix, right? Because it had really, truly grabbed me. Now, had it been a case where I'm just good at balancing and I don't, and this is who I am and, no, it was always, I was so passionate about what I had done that I wasn't generally open to comments. But it's not my record. And so I think acquired quite a bad attitude from that. I mean, people were like, oh, he doesn't listen. And that's irrelevant. What was important is that I wasn't giving the artist their full respect, right? Trying their idea. Maybe the idea doesn't work, but at least try it, right? And so I went through that whole transition from, because my manager was saying, hey, listen, people are complaining. And then I was like, well, I'm so passionate. And then I changed it the opposite. I was like, fine, I don't care. I'll mix this, whatever you want, I'll fucking do it. All right. Is this good? Is this good? Right. That's not any better. That was even more like insulting and arrogant, right? Because I still didn't get it. I'm like, fine. This would be like my daughter when I tell her to do something when she was a kid. She go, fine, daddy.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So like that didn't work. And then, then eventually I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like at this, okay, I'm passionate, but how about just not being so passionate? Once you've mixed it, it's printed. It's not like it's going away. It's there. Okay. How about listening to what the artist has to say, trying the ideas? It might make it actually better. And if it's better, who gets the accolades? You do, right? Because if it's a better song, nobody's going to remember what the comments were.
Right.
You get all the glory, right? So from an ego standpoint, you got nothing to lose. But from the respect of the artist, you're listening to what their ideas are. After all, it's their song. It's not your song. You're not the artist. They're the artist. You can start acting like you're the artist, but you know what? If they didn't write that song and you're sitting there with nothing in your room, what are you? You're sitting there in a quiet room. That's what you are. So where's the I'm the artist part come into play? It doesn't. It only comes into play in that your job really is to bring out that message and bring out the song. And yes, you can be definitely a contributing factor to it, but you're not the artist unless you wrote it, produced it, and all the other stuff. But if you're the engineer, you're the mixer, that's your job, right? And so once I got that into my head, I was much more at peace. Things went much better. Artists were a lot happier. I was a lot happier. And I learned how to do the comments, and if they weren't good, to be able to get back to what I had without offending anybody. I would have this certain way of, just trashing the idea, and we'd all laugh, and then if my idea sucked, we'd laugh at me, So I learned how to be able to deal with this in my own way, which never is the easiest way I've discovered, but it works really, really well, right? And I have learned so much about people and psychology. Like when I'm teaching seminars, the kind of the attendees, they're all going to be very different, and some of them are a real trip. And I've learned how to get through to, all different types of attitudes and emotions and egos and stuff, because they're not there to give you a hard time. They got struggles, they got their own little demons, as we all do. So that's what I would have. Well, I had to do it wrong to know how to do it really right. So I don't say I would have said avoid that, because then I wouldn't have known if I hadn't done it wrong. I mean, and that's, the whole thing with teaching these seminars, it's not about, don't do this or don't do that. Just be aware. This is how I learned this. When it comes time to you and you're in the same experience, just remember what I said. And then maybe it'll help you it'll guide you through, the rough waters a little bit better. But I just don't regret anything that I did wrong, because I became so much better because of it. More experienced and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's certain things that I wish I just hadn't done, because, but that's the past. I can't be sitting there, affected by that. That shit's gone. I've already forgotten.
Yeah.
Unless somebody reminds me, and I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, you sure that was me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you made me do like 40 push-ups. Yeah, because you kept plugging the damn thing in the wrong, and I kept saying, double check your patches. Well, I did. No, you keep doing it wrong. I'd look at like this one guy who's like really strong. Like I could see he does push-ups, and I would go, if you do the next mispatch again, I'm going to make you do 20 push-ups.
That's great.
And then the next time it'll be 40 push-ups, right? And so the guy, it was like, what, do you want to do push-ups, right? And so he would do a mispatch, and then he'd be like, okay, down for 20, But it's like a smile. It's not like I'm whipping him or something, right? Great. I mean, in today's world, on the walk and the whole thing, he could probably sue my ass. You gave me stress.
Hashtag push-ups.
Like, yeah. So, but back then, I think at some point I ran into that guy again, or he had, that story came back to me, and I laughed.
And now he's jacked.
Because, right? Yeah, now he's like really jacked. But back then it was about teaching. You had to teach people in different ways. Not everybody can be taught the same way. Everybody learns in a different way. And you can't try to teach one person where it doesn't work, because I know what that was like. I was a tough kid to be taught. I just didn't get 90% of what I was being shown or told. So I learned, and then when somebody approached me in the right way, I learned so quickly. So we're all different. We're not all like easily trainable, but we do have it. So that's why, that approach would be different. But in today's fucked up, like you can't say anything. I pity the people who are trying to train others. If you're in doing it for a mentorship, if you're being mentored and it's an apprenticeship isn't like, it's not supposed, it can't work if it's all nice and sweet and respectful. I mean,
I've made an intern cry before.
It's not my problem anymore, but,
oh man. Well, Michael, we appreciate you being here and teaching us today, man. What a pleasure hanging out with you. And It's an honor to, just be able to sit down and chat with you and just have you share all of your insights and everything with us. What would you like? What's a place that the rock stars can go and see what you're up to? Where would you like them to go check out? I mean, I would encourage everybody to go over to puremix.net and check out your Brauerize ITB course, because it's well worth watching and was awesome.
Yeah, I don't have a YouTube channel, or I don't have any of that stuff going on. I think going to Pure Mix is really good, or you can go, my earlier videos with Mix with the Masters. I mean, I've got an Instagram page, but it's not like I'm there every day, doing stuff on it, or, you'll see me maybe on the bike, or maybe you'll see me doing some stuff. I don't
just send music.
It's just fun. Yeah. But, I think, I try to keep my discography up to date. Speaking of that, it probably is not. So I'll probably do that over the next few days.
Well, we have one that we put together in the playlist in the show notes. So Rockstars, you can click through on that too. And I'll share that with you, Michael, so that you can edit it further if there's anything that doesn't look good to you.
Although I did mix something recently that came out that you guys should check out. It's called Moon Man.
Oh, very cool.
By Balu Brigade. Oh, it's such a good band, such a good song. And Fernando and I mixed it in Atmos. So there's my stereo mix, and then there's our Atmos mix that's coming out next week, I believe. It's such a cool song. In fact, I think I'm going to be at AES. I'm going to be doing a panel with Pensada and Jason and Young Guru, and I can't quite remember who else. It's going to be a little panel at AES, so check us out there. But I'm also going to do, that little 1 hour seminar thing for Mix with the Masters, cool. And I'll probably play that song and maybe get somebody up to help me mix it or something, like I did last 2 years ago.
Right on. Well, this may come out a little cool later song. Than that, but we'll make sure that the replay is in there too if we can.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it's not live.
That's okay. All right.
Well,
Michael, thanks so much for joining us here. I just want to say thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you also for listening and being here, Rockstars. If you got any questions for any of us, just and you're watching this or listening where you can leave a comment, then please drop one in there and ask your question, and we'll get to it to answer it as best we can. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. And if you want more free content from Recording Studio Rockstars, all you have to do is go to rsrockstars.com/email. Again, that's rsrockstars.com/email to enter your name and email, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, podcast updates, and even free gear giveaways for your studio. Just look for the link in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible. OWC, Spectra 1964, JZ Microphones, Atom Audio, Solid State Logic, and Isotope. Remember to use these coupon codes for special discounts. At isotope.com/rockstars, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase, or start your extended 30-day free trial subscription subscription for access to many plugins. At jzmic.com, use the code ROCKSTAR for 40% off the V47, V67, and V12 microphones. That's what you're hearing my voice on right now. At recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy, use the coupon ROCKSTAR for 10% off any course for a limited time. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, then please check out our sponsors using the link in our show notes because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio, and they're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and John Richardson for additional podcast and video production. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.